And I would like to welcome Rob Gibson to talk with us about ensuring academic integrity and quality course design in the age of AI, something that we're all very interested in. And Rob, feel free to take it.
Great. Thank you, Barbara, and welcome everybody. It's great to have you for the next 45 minutes or so. As Barbara said, I'm Robert Gibson. I'm the Dean of our Instructional Design and Technology program at Wichita State University, the technical college, the tech side. Just a little bit of background about me, so you kind of know where I'm coming from. I'm a QM Master Reviewer. I'm also the QMC for the campus. I'm a member of the QMAC. And as it pertains to this presentation today, I'm also a member of the International Center for Academic Integrity, the ICAI. And we'll talk more about that, some people who are involved in that organization. I think if you're not familiar with it, I would encourage you to investigate and explore it. It's a good organization that looks at, all manner of academic integrity issues that we deal with on campuses. It's, as you can imagine, really the people who are joining that organization it's exploding right now. People are really signing up quickly. I can see their membership has really gone up quite a bit recently. If you need to get in contact with me, my information is at the bottom, and I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. So I would encourage you to look me up afterwards if you'd like. I've thrown a QR code up on the screen. This is a Menti presentation. I've got a few polls throughout the presentation, kind of scattered. So if you would take a moment and fire up your QR reader on your phone and just take a snapshot of that QR code, because I'm going to be circling back to that here in just a little bit. So I'll leave it up there for another 10 seconds or so, and we'll take it down and move on. Okay. All right. Going away. Let's move on. So I've got this is a Twitter poll. This is not a Menti poll. In the chat, if you would indicate sort of a self perspective here, if you are a 1, 2, or 3, so I can just sort of level up where we're at. So 1, you're familiar with AI, but you're not really using it in course design and development. 2, you use AI in some areas of course design and development, but just only occasionally. Or 3, you're kind of hardcore. You use AI in all phases of course design and development. What would you rank yourself, a 1, 2, or a 3? Okay, there's quite a few ones, actually. Interesting. Okay, that's good. 2. Just let that Twitter fall kind of come in here. Let me see what this looks like. So 1 to 2, Michelle. Brandy is a 3. Okay, got all over the place. Okay, good. Christy's a 2. Awesome. We'll keep those coming in. I'll keep an eye on the chat here. We may circle back to that here in just a little bit. I'm going to posit this statement to sort of kick off our discussion today, our conversation. This is not something you have to answer in the chat or anything, but I will also circle back to this same statement at the end or the conclusion. I just want to leave this with you, just sort of something to think about, to maybe serve as a foundation for our conversation today. So given that AI can now complete assignments and assessments in some or all of our courses, how confident are you that your course still meets quality matter standards for authentic assessments and measurable learning outcomes? Again, I'm not looking for an answer to that right now, but maybe at the end, after we've gone through some of this, you can give me some thoughts and perspectives about whether or not you still feel that quality matters is meeting, or your courses are meeting quality matter standards, I should say, given some of these technological changes that we're all wrestling with. This is a Menti poll. If you would for me, please, you can either use the QR code or you can use the join code up on the top. This is a sort of a binary question. Does the current QM rubric adequately address AI generated course content? So there's a yes, no, or not sure. I'll give that a minute to populate here. And while you're doing that, I will share that I'm my team is simultaneously going through a series of workshops through SUNY, the SUNY system for the Oscar rubric. It's kind of a competitor rubric to QM. And the person that sort of oversees that rubric is the presenter. We were talking about this in a webinar yesterday, and they're actually, the SUNY system is actually in the process of, they're road mapping what the Oscar is going to be looking like going forward in light of AI. So they're starting to think about this and forecast how they're going to have to adapt that particular rubric, that scorecard, in light of some of these changes. So, okay, interesting. So, Barbara, this is something that we ought to bring up at some point. Does the current QM rubric adequately address AI generated course content? So, a lot of mostly not sure. It's really not even close. Most of you are just not quite sure if that's fitting. 3 no's, and only one person really thinks that it does. So, it's something that we may have to take up in conversations among the QM people. So, we can talk about that more. Thank you. Thank you very much for participating in that. I've got some more questions coming, so don't put your phones away just yet. I'm going to give you a series of quotes to sort of stimulate your thinking about this topic. And this is, this is sort of weighs heavy on all of us. I think anybody who does course design or course development is very concerned about academic integrity and how that impacts course quality, the rigor of the course. And I'm going to provide some rather pointed quotes here in just a few minutes from some people that I have a lot of admiration for, who work in the field, who basically, I'll give you a little bit of a prelude. They consider this to be such an important issue, a heavy issue that's weighing on all of us, that if we don't start to address the issue of academic integrity and quality, that this could threaten, really could threaten the integrity of our asynchronous course delivery format. It's really getting to be that serious. And I hate to table it in that sort of a statement, but we're starting to, I think, worry about the quality of the content, whether or not students are just basically can cheat their way through the course through these tools that I'm going to share with you, and what that means for accreditation and quality standards as we go forward. So it's something to think about. So Clara Lynn Hawking is somebody I follow on LinkedIn. Why do students cheat? Well, maybe the better question is, why do we keep designing courses and systems that make them want to cheat? And I've got a few more of these thought-provoking quotes as we kind of go through here. I don't know if you know Trisha Bertram Galan. I'm a big fan of hers. I've been following her work for a number of years. She's often quoted in the Chronicle. She has a new book coming out, which I'll share with you on the next slide. She says we need to get in front of this quickly and realize the days of asynchronous learning, and particularly asynchronous assessment, are over. And she's pretty pointed about that as well. That is, if you want learning confirmed and trusted of skills and knowledge. And I can't think of a better person in the field of academic integrity than Trisha Bertram Galan. She's speaking all over the country, actually all over the world right now. She's in high demand. I tried to get her here for a conference, and she's just too busy. So actually, her co-author, David Rettinger, which I'll show with you in just a minute, he's actually going to be doing one of our keynotes coming out this summer. But when we had a conference call with her not too long ago, she was indicating to us that this is going to threaten asynchronous learning. This AI stuff. She really feels pretty strongly. I don't want to mince words here. She feels pretty strongly that if we don't figure out how to redesign our courses, redesign our assessments, that this is going to eat us alive. That there's basically no validity for the courses that we're going to be delivering. We can't guarantee that the students are actually learning anything, or they're actually even taking the courses in some cases. This is the book. I'm going to put a plug in for her and her co-author, David Rettinger from the University of Tulsa. Trisha's from the University of Cal State San Diego. This book just launched. It's called The Opposite of Cheating. And I saw a presentation with her. It was a podcast with the guy that actually developed Perusal. I forget his name, from Harvard. But he asked them, what is the opposite of cheating? And they said it's learning, to be real or blunt about it. But I haven't read the book yet. It's on my list of my reads this summer, so I'm going to definitely get my hands on that as quickly as I possibly can. But you may want to take a look at that and see if you can. It just came out, so you can. I think you can get a copy of it now today. Another good book that I'm reading, I would encourage you to take a look at. It's called Infinite Education by Dan Fitzpatrick, and he is an advocate for AI, but he's also simultaneously an advocate for course redesign. He feels as though the days of our incumbent models for designing courses, which are heavily laden typically in assessment, traditional sort of objective style assessments and those types of things. He thinks that those days are basically now over. We can't trust or rely in that particular type of course design. He feels that we need to, he goes so far as to say he thinks we need to really basically abandon how we measure students' competencies. So the traditional grading system is actually outdated now as well. And I absolutely agree with him on that as well. I'm a big fan of competency-based learning myself, so no dispute from me on that. Let me take just a breath of fresh air here and see what we have. Is there any feedbacks here? Feedback coming through? What was the last book called? The Opposite of Cheating. Yeah, so let me head back over there. It's called The Opposite of Cheating. That's it. Teaching for Integrity in the Age of AI. Randy, thank you for asking that question. Just came out. I think it was just maybe in the last couple of weeks. Any other questions coming in on chat? Nope. Okay, well, let's move on. So I want to pivot just a little bit and give you a little bit of a stark introduction to a technology. I'm sure some of you have heard of this. If you haven't, you will. We're starting to see this start to surface in a lot of areas of artificial intelligence. These are called agentic models, agentic technologies. And agentic literally, as you can see on the screen, refers to something is capable of achieving, this is the textbook definition, achieving outcomes independently, functioning like an agent. Agentic AI is, and I'm going to show you some videos here in just a few minutes of what this looks like, are actually able to log into our learning management systems completely autonomously. And they can complete every activity on the course. They can go through and they can do writing assignments, they can take tests, they can do anything that is presented to them without really basically any user involvement or interaction with that at all. It's completely autonomous. So if it doesn't concern you, it should, because these tools are now available. OpenAI has a tool. The Microsoft platform has a Studio Copilot, has a Studio Agent tool that you can actually use right now today. You can start to build these tools. So students have access to this right now, and they can start to develop and design their agents. Um, Obviously, the more technically savvy students are going to be the ones that probably lead this charge, but I think it's going to get to the point soon where most of these tools are going to be fingertip access. Any student really with any sort of technological background can use an agent tool fairly easily. This is an example of what an agent can do. This is a technology which some of you may have heard of. It's called Manus. It's a Chinese technology. It's an agent. This happens to be a screenshot from Andrew Maynard from Arizona State University. He actually asked the agent to go through and design the entire course, everything. I mean, outside of the LMS, this is not using an LMS. He gave it a few commands, some structure, some guidance, and it went through and designed the entire course, the modules, the learning outcomes, did everything autonomously, just based upon a prompt or two. And so he's one of many people I've been kind of following. I've actually subscribed to I'm on the wait list to try Manus. I've not had a chance to get my hands on it just yet to see what it can do. So this is all sort of secondhand. If any of you have used an agent or Manus, something like that, would you put that into the chat? I'd be really curious to see if we could maybe call you out and see if you could give us some feedback on what that experience was like. I'd be really curious. So if you've tried one of these agent tools, I'd be really curious to see what your experience was with that. But These types of tools I actually think could eventually challenge, they're so sophisticated, frankly, that they could actually challenge the incumbent learning management systems in terms of how we design courses. I'm going to, hopefully the sound is going to go through okay. I didn't get a chance to pre-check this. The sound is on, but this is, if it doesn't, we'll roll. This is a short video with a faculty member by the name of Danny Liu from the University of Sydney. And what he was tasked with um, helping to explore some of these tools, not just agents, but other sorts of plugin tools, which students can access right now. They can leverage these tools right now to help them complete tasks in a course. So I'll keep my fingers crossed that the audio is going to work okay. I'm just going to play a couple minutes of this for you.
Hi, my name is Danny Liu, and I'm from the University of Sydney. TEXA has provided funding for my colleague, Benjamin Miller, and I to produce 3 short videos to showcase the increasing sophistication of generative AI tools. Through these videos, we hope to show you how generative AI tools can be used by students to enhance or to subvert their learning. This first video shows some generative AI tools which can do quizzes online, produce long-form writing, analyze data, access real references, make presentations, and more. We hope you enjoy this short video series. Make sure you keep an eye on the TEXA Higher Education Good Practice Hub for the next videos in this series. First up, we have a browser plugin called Quizmate. There are many of these available. This browser plugin injects itself into your Canvas quiz, for example, reads the quiz off the screen, and answers the questions for the students. It can take in lots of different question types, as we can see here, interpreting the text on the screen. And when we submit the quiz, we can see that we can get full marks. This next example takes an Excel spreadsheet and puts it into ChatGPT. We're going to give ChatGPT a bit of information about what the spreadsheet is about, which is experimental data from a first-year science experiment. And ChatGPT is going to basically suggest some analyses, and we're going to choose one of them. It's going to do the analysis itself of the data which is in the Excel spreadsheet, draw a graph, and then we're going to ask it to write up a results section that we can then put into a scientific report. Does this fairly quickly, about 200 words, summarizes the data. Then we think, okay, well, we need an introduction section. And so we need a scholarly introduction section. So we're going to activate a plugin called Scholar AI. And Scholar AI allows ChatGPT to talk to real literature, and then it writes the introduction section. Now we think, well, maybe we should get it to write a discussion section as well. So we do the same thing. We also use the plugin Scholar AI. A common misunderstanding is that ChatGPT always hallucinates references, and you can see here that if you use the right plugins, then all the references it uses are going to be real. Then we think, oh, well, maybe my teachers are going to be using an AI detector, so we're going to activate a plugin called Humanize AI, and Humanize AI is able to rewrite the AI text using AI so that it is undetectable by AI detectors. And to be extra sure that we can't get picked up, we might search the internet for prompts that will help us avoid AI detection even further. There's a prompt on the screen which we've hidden for obvious reasons, and this asks ChatGPT to rewrite the text in a way that can't be detected by AI detectors. And we find that if we submit this rewritten text to very commonly used AI detectors in institutions, they're basically not being able to pick this up. But it's not just ChatGPT and its plugins that gives access to literature. Here we have an AI that is embedded into an official tool that students have access to from Clarivate. And this gives students the ability to use natural language to search real literature from the official library collection. It produces a summary, it even shows its sources, and it even suggests further research questions, which might actually be a very helpful thing to aid students in thinking about research.
Okay, I'll pause it there. I just wanted to give you, with that particular video, I want to just give you a little taste test as to some of these tools and their efficacy when it comes to how students are using them and how easily they can be injected into a course and be able to complete various content inside of the course. It doesn't take the students much effort. These plugins are fairly easy to access. Even students with low technical skills have ready access to these features. I'm going to move on to another video. This is get a little bit, I think, more frightening. This is actually an example, a video example of an agent. This happens to be the new OpenAI agent, not Manus, but a new OpenAI agent. And what you're going to see, this is a Moodle course, I believe, is the example. I'm going to play a little bit of this for you. We don't have time to show the whole thing, but I think you can get a couple of minutes. You'll get a sense of how an agent works. I want you to keep in mind that what you're going to see on the screen is completely done autonomously through an agent. There's very little human interaction.
Hey, this is Joe, writing at This Isn't Fine, also CEO and founder of Cursive Technology. And what you're about to see is the computer using agent from OpenAI called Operator, navigating a learning management system with a minimum of instructions from presumably what would be the student in order to complete every single assignment or activity that are provided. In this case, it's a couple of online writing assignments and some reflections, but as you can tell, very easily navigated by the operator and completed in short order. Same would go for basically any quizzes or any tests that would be provided as well. Really makes it a important aspect of your academic integrity future in having a plan to address these types of things. Thank you. You'll note in the latter part of this, the speed is going to go to about 2x, but it all said took about 5 minutes for the agent to complete these couple exercises. For what it's worth, it would not take just 5 minutes for a student to actually go through and do the writing exercises. Thanks.
I'm going to let this play for 30 seconds or so you can see it and get a sense for how this works. Note what's happening on the left-hand side. That's really important. This is the agent actually sort of self creating its own prompts in some cases. And in some cases, the person doing the recording had to steer it slightly, had to provide a little bit of nuance for the prompt. So he says, yes, you do not have to ask for permission anymore. So this Moodle course, there's a written assignment. The agent has opened the assignment, read the assignment, has completed the assignment, and submitted the assignment, all autonomously. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to pause. Any thoughts or reflections about what you've just seen? Brittany asked, would this show up on activity report ran by the LMS? Would there be any indication with timestamps? That's a good question. I don't know. I think it would be contingent. My guess would be contingent upon the learning management system as to how well it timestamps and things. I suppose something could look a little suspect if went through and completed things really rapidly, and your LMS were able to track that. That could, I think, raise a flare. Whether or not you can do anything and act upon that is another question altogether. This is going to keep your academic integrity shops, if you have one on your campus. I know K-State up the road has one. One person, Camilla Roberts, and I'm sure she is very busy these days trying to keep up with all of this stuff. One more very, very short one, if you'll indulge me. This one's from Stanford. This is a Canvas course. There's no audio, but you can at least see what's happening. This is only 16 seconds. Here's an agent. I think it's the OpenAI agent. I'm going through and taking a quiz and submitting the quiz all autonomously. Okay. So that gives you, I think, a little bit of a sense as to what's happening in our world and why I think, and I'll get to this here in the latter part of our presentation today, is to talk about how we can design courses to help to deter these types of technologies, because I don't think that, like, the days of traditional, unless they're low stakes sorts of things, I don't think we can add high stakes objective style tests and writing assignments to our learning management system in online courses anymore. Again, Trisha Bertram-Glenn, I'll come back to her. She was pretty blunt. She said, this is gonna, if we don't get our head around this and start to figure this out, this will basically void asynchronous learning because it'll all become diploma mill stuff, right? And that's what she's really worried about as an academic integrity person. Kath Ellis, if you don't follow her, I would highly encourage you to look her up on, she's also from the University of Sydney. Look her up on LinkedIn. She's very open to connecting. If you'll indulge me, I'm gonna read this back very quickly. Teachers don't need to secure every assessment task rather, or even every little thing that we need to confirm a student has successfully learned on their journey to graduation. In fact, any efforts to do this, most recently by using far from perfect AI detection tools, are almost certainly making the everyday lives of students pretty intolerable. Instead, teachers need to rethink assessment practice such that students are given multiple opportunities to demonstrate their learning tasks where little or even no effort to stop or detect cheating is made. So she's really kind of going to the, and this is her jam. She's an academic technology expert, academic integrity. She really thinks that we need to just put a full stop to these detection tools, that they're ineffective, and we need to really look at redesigning our courses and our assessments. David Redinger, the co-author of the book, says better assessment is not going to eliminate cheating, but bad assessment is almost begging students to commit misconduct. And that actually harkens back to Kath Ellis and some of the work that she's been doing. This is her mantra, is that bad assessment is just begs students to commit misconduct. So assessments that are regurgitated, through the courses over the period of years, they're not well constructed questions, they're high stakes questions, those types of things. This is the person I would encourage you to follow on LinkedIn. This is Philippa Hardman. She's from the UK. She's sort of broken us down into these two verticals, if you will. So she calls it the online learning era, the incumbent era, which is content and quiz, cognitive decoupling, performance metrics on assessments, distinct modes of learning, and LMS-centric context. She thinks in the new era, we're going to be moving more towards AI-generated practice and feedback, cognitive recoupling, competency-based assessment. She calls them blurring modes. All of this is part and parcel of her model called DOMS that she has patented. And she feels like there's going to be the death of the static LMS and a rise of learning agents. So if you're a big fan of your LMS, we like what we use. This could threaten the incumbent learning management system model, frankly. And I kind of worry about that, actually. I think that there's some truth to that. I've been in this business a long time. I've heard that for many, many years of, the death of LMS is coming. It never has. I think this could potentially be the catalyst for that. This guy I ran into the other day on LinkedIn. I encourage you to look him up. I think he pronounces his name Rashir. I don't know him. He says there's 3 immediate steps that instructional designers can take in their assessment redesign. Audit your current assessments to identify and redesign tasks. Integrate process-based and personalized assessment, and collaborate with faculty and learners to foster a shared culture. You'll hear that theme throughout. You'll start to hear that being picked up by a lot of different campuses. This is sort of a common topic that I'm starting to hear as a way to address some of these things that I've just shown you today. Okay, we're going to take a second for another little quick Quizlet, so get your phone out. How should instructional designers prepare for AI and academic integrity? Authentic assessments, diversify assessment types, embed academic integrity guidance, promote student self-checks, leverage more native features, support faculty readiness, or promote use of AI checkers. Let me give you a second to hop in there and answer that. Wow, right off the bat. Diversify assessment types. Embed academic integrity guidance. I'm teaching a adjunct technology course, and I'm wrestling with this topic firsthand. And I've always been the evangelist of what to do, and now suddenly I'm actually in the seat of the faculty member. Okay, what do I do? What did I been tell my faculty to do? And I'm trying to balance it as best I can. I I've I know my students are going to use AI. I just know they are. It's an online course, so I have tried to reach out to them to provide some guidance in terms of how they use the AI. So if they're going to use things like school AI or things like that, Magic School, I try and tell them some of the pitfalls, and there are some pitfalls. Some recent articles which have come out, particularly about school AI and some of its drift, getting people into trouble with some of these historical figures. Trying to tell them don't take that on face value. Try and discriminate. Use the output. Look at it. Restructure the prompts if you have to, but do not take it just exactly as it spits it out. So good. Diversify assessment types for authentic assessment. Good. Good. And nobody has selected promote use of AI checkers, which is good. I'm not a fan of those. I'm sorry if you're if you are. I don't think that they work. Some people are evangelists for those. I just don't happen to be. I don't think they work at all. The false positive on them is just too high. So I'm going to go through rather quickly here. We've got about 15 minutes left, 14 minutes left. This is a series which I ran into this guy again on LinkedIn. I really like his work. I think he pronounces his name Nick. I'm going to probably butcher this, Podkalski. I'm not sure how he pronounces his last name. But as I kind of indicated or alluded to earlier, he advocates for less of a product-oriented pedagogy, more to a process-oriented pedagogy. And this framework, I'm going to kind of buzz through here pretty quickly so we have some time for some questions at the end. So the slide deck will be available to you afterwards. So if you miss something, don't freak out. It'll be available on the QM site afterwards. But let me just kind of go through here fairly quickly. His four tenets for his framework are process over the final project, or product rather. So rather than the final test, rather than some sort of a capstone thing, he is more interested in how the students actually arrived at that particular finality. So you track their process, the development of their process through time. Iteration over single submission. So having students submit, go through a recheck process. And even if you use AI, there's some people I follow that are AI advocates that teach in the writing area, which is, that's sort of the front line for a lot of this. They advocate for actually providing students some prompting materials and resources that they can use to help to generate ideas. And they will sort of do this back and forth between the instructor and student to help to reformulate that. So very much a collaborative partnership sort of approach. Real-time engagement and multimodal expression. So multimodal, of course, being able to submit through more than one modality. And I'll have some examples of those coming up. So this is the first of those tenets, the process over the final product, capturing how students arrive at ideas, not just the end result. And I apologize how fast I'm going to go through here, but I realize I'm kind of short on time. So these are some ideas: journals and reflective logs, think alouds and video reflections, iterative drafts and annotations, and peer feedback and self-assessment. Those are some ideas. The little nuance, the little details, you can check that out later when you download the slide deck. So an example of this is, instead of a single history paper, students annotate primary sources, document how their perspectives shift across discussions, and submit a final synthesis along with notes on how their thinking changed. So this is his solution for at least one of those solutions, one of those tenets for addressing some of these concerns. The second one is iteration over a single submission. So allowing students to refine and revise work through structured feedback. This is what I was telling you. Her name is Michelle. Her name is at the very end. She teaches at Georgia Perimeter English. Connect with her on LinkedIn. Her name is at the end. She's really good and in high demand to talk about how she structures her English comp classes using AI. She's a big fan of it, actually. You would think that she would be just the opposite. So multiple submission points. Students turn in initial drafts and receive feedback. Teacher peer reviews, so feedback is integrated into the learning process. So revision is a skill, not just a requirement. And metacognitive reflections. Students explain why they made specific revisions along the way. So an example of that, instead of a single science lab report, students conduct an experiment, document findings, present preliminary results, peer feedback, refine their approach, then explain what changed and why. The third one is real-time engagement. So assessing learning through discussion and reasoning. AI cannot replicate spontaneous reasoning and interactive discussion. Oral defenses and Socratic seminars. Students present ideas and respond to live questioning. Debates and role-playing exercises, defend positions in a live setting. Obviously, that it depends upon the modality of your course. And or collaborate with problem solving. So students work in groups to tackle real-world challenges, explain reasoning, and refining solutions through discussion. An example of that is in a math class. Students develop a model for real-world data, then present their reasoning and answer live questions about their approach, forcing them to engage beyond just pre-written responses. And lastly, the multimodal, expanding beyond text-based assignments to oral, visual, and collaborative demonstrations and understanding. Oral presentations and podcasts, students articulate insights verbally, explaining concepts to an audience. Visual design and storytelling, infographics, video essays, digital timelines, applied demonstrations and simulations, hands-on experiential learning activities help reinforce concepts. An example of that is instead of a written essay on the Great Gatsby, students create a digital storyboard tracing the thematic development, supported by oral analysis. So I think what Tricia Richmond would say if she were here in this call, she would say we're going to probably be seeing more of a requirement going forward for all of our classes for students to actually develop oral synthesis and oral presentations as part of their learning journey, capturing that somehow through a tool, through a video capture tool, that type of thing. Very difficult for AI to do that yet. We'll see what develops. So the final question I have to ask you is which aspects of QM course design are most likely, which aspect rather, singular, is most likely to be impacted by AI? Course alignment, assessment design, instructional materials, learner engagement, accessibility, or feedback and interaction? Which aspect of QM course design is most likely to be impacted by AI? Assessment design is out to an early lead. Learner engagement, feedback, instructional materials, surprising, a little low. Accessibility, course alignment. So it looks like initially, well, some of you are still typing in, it looks like learner engagement is the most popular element of course design. How we engage learners in the learning journey. Assessment design is very close thereafter. So how we design and develop assessments. How we design and develop instructional materials is third. Course alignment, feedback, interaction, accessibility. The good news is actually accessibility has been using AI for a long time. I did a presentation and a few papers on it for EDUCAUSE not too long ago. And there's a lot of really positive things happening in the area of accessibility. That's actually a sort of a positive twist to AI. We're seeing a lot of neat new tools in that area. So that's actually, I put that in the plus column. But it could be that there's something I'm not thinking through in terms of how that impacts course design. So very good. Okay, great. That helps me a lot. Thank you for that. So the kind of wrap this up, what I did is I looked at ways that we can redesign strategy sort of based around the Quality Matters rubric. And I came up with sort of 6 ideas to leave you with today as we're getting close to the end. Again, I'm going to go through here a little quicker than I wanted to, but the first one is use authentic assessments. We just kind of rolled off of that poll, which talked that you obviously have seen that as very important. So replace traditional tests with projects that mimic real world tasks and so forth. So how it reduces cheating, AI tools are less effective at complex completing of complex context specific tasks. And this promotes originality. The second one is scaffold your assignments with checkpoints. Break assignments into smaller chunks, with required drafts and feedback cycles. Makes it harder to outsource the entire task, encourages continuous engagement and accountability. And by the way, those are the QM criteria standards that it's actually aligning to. The third one is incorporate oral reflections or viva voice. Viva is actually called viva voca. It's an Italian word. Personalizes the assessment, makes it harder to use AI generated content without understanding. So after submitting a paper project, requires students to discuss their process and findings in a short recorded or live session. The fourth one, use randomized and adaptive quizzes. If your faculty member you're working with is intent on using objective style tests, as many of them are, and will continue to be probably, there are mechanisms within the learning management system to help to mitigate some of that. Agents, as you saw, I think are going to be one step in front of us on that. I think they can still probably decipher a randomized assessment, so that's going to stop an agent necessarily. It may help to reduce some of that, but I don't think it's going to replace it completely. Emphasize process over product. You heard that from Nick earlier. So grade based on logs, drafts, reflections, rather than a final project or product. And finally, integrate academic integrity education. So help to your students to understand why this is important for their learning journey. How, if you are going to adopt AI, how they should use it ethically. If you are not going to adopt AI, why you feel that way. You should probably tell them why you don't think that's an ethical tool to be using, that sort of thing. What are the advantages and disadvantages of it? Whatever your course culture happens to be at your campus, that's going to be obviously going to vary between all of us, but if that's incorporated or inculcated into the syllabus, or that's written into sort of institutional policy, it's going to depend upon your institution. But there's certainly, I think, an opportunity to have conversations with students about that. These are some of those names as I'm kind of coming up to the end of the presentation here. These are some names I would encourage you to take a look at. It'll be the slide deck. Kath Ellis. Michelle Casorla, I think Casorla, is the faculty member from Georgia Perimeter. I would strongly encourage you to connect with her on LinkedIn. She is awesome. She has some wonderful ideas about how to use AI in language classes, composition classes. Camilla Roberts from K-State, Jason Gulia. These are names you probably have heard about if you follow LinkedIn. Claire, I mentioned, Tricia Bertram-Gallant, it will connect with you easily. David Redinger, Kane Murdoch from Australia, great academic integrity guy. I list Melanie Dussault. She's actually from, I think, from Findlay University, and she is sort of the counter measures, the counterbalance. She is very anti-AI and makes a great case for why it concerns her. And I would encourage you to follow her, because I sort of look at it, from both lenses, and I really appreciate her perspective on this. She gives a lot of really good justification as to why she does not allow AI in her classes. So if you want that, if you don't want to go, all in on AI, I would encourage you to follow her work. Nick Peachy is another really good one. These are some organizations, of course, QM, OLC, the ICIA, the Learning Development Accelerator are good organizations which talk about this topic. So with that, I'm going to kind of circle all the way back to the beginning where we started. Given that AI can now complete assignments and assessments in some of your courses, how confident are you that your course meets quality matter standards for authentic assessments and measurable learning outcomes? So with that, I'm going to, looks like we're just about, I got a couple of minutes, Barbara. Do we have any questions that have come in? Miriam says, what ways may proctoring solutions be impacted by AI? Do you mean, Miriam, let me ask a follow-up question. Do you mean live proctoring, or do you mean proctoring, copy leaks type proctoring stuff? Live. That's a good question. I've sort of followed up on it a little bit. Would you believe that students, I saw this, it's for real, I'm making this up, students actually have instructions that they have shared with one another on various channels on how to subvert live proctoring and still have AI running. They can still use AI through a variety of mechanisms. They actually share strategies on how to do that. So I don't think that's the silver bullet. Clever students are going to find a way around that. and circumvent that pretty easily. And they share strategies on how to do that. So yeah, there are bad news, I guess. Okay, other questions? I like the idea of the video reflections. You can't pick it. Okay, good, good. Okay. Okay, well, Barbara, I will turn it over to you. We are right at the top of the hour.
We sure are. Thank you very much. This was very thought-provoking. I think you've given us a lot to dig into, a lot of people to connect with, and I'm sure everybody's going to want to download the slides. So we really appreciate you sharing with us, Rob, and thank you all for joining in and all your comments, and hope you're having a great day. We just have one more session and then a wrap up for the end of the afternoon. So thank you all so much.
Thank you for joining. It's great to see you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.